Now, this one will get some people nervous. Traditional owners, of Great Keppel Island have lodged a fresh native title claim. The Woppaburra people were formally recognised in 2021 as the native title holders of 570 square kilometres of land and sea off the coast of Yeppoon on the Capricorn coast. They're now seeking exclusive possession over the former resort site as an airstrip, the Courier Mail reports. The claim, which remains in pre-notification stage, covers 9 lots and one partial lot covering a total of 9.1 square kilometres. I've said it many a time on this program or on my weekends program that native title claims are increasing and we should be worried. It comes after the Queensland government last year cancelled the existing private lease. The cancellation of the lease means the Woppaburra people are entitled to submit a second native title claim that includes the resort area. But the Queensland government will challenge the claim, with the Department of Resources possibly classifying the area as a strategic land management reserve rather than vacant land. Now, this, of course, follows the landmark native title ruling over the area of Queensland stretching from Moreton Bay to the Fraser Coast. In that area, some of the early impacts could be a proposal for an Aboriginal tourist attraction, Indigenous language programs and traditional land practices, such as fish trapping and backburning. The federal court granted native title recognition to the Cubby Cubby people for the vast section of land in the state's southeast last week. Joining me on the line is One Nation candidate, for the seat of Keppel, James Ashby. James, good morning to you.
G'day, Peter.
Should we be worried?
Yeah, we should, because the application is seeking exclusive use over what would be roughly about a further 70% of Great Keppel Island. That would take native titles exclusive use on the island to about 84%. And that in itself, as we've seen in other areas that have been granted exclusive use, like the Fraser Coast, around Burrum Heads, Indigenous people who've been given that exclusive use to those areas have actually told non-Indigenous people, get off our land. And we up here in central Queensland, we've all got an affiliation with Great Keppel Island. It doesn't matter whether you're a central Queenslander or otherwise. So many people have been there, whether it be for honeymoons or just parties when they were younger. And I just see this as a real blow to what are the remaining island operators, some of the residents who still live on the island, and to the mainlanders. You know, this has been done by stealth. As you rightfully pointed out, in 2021, the federal court extinguished native title over the rest of the island. They were given 14% to some areas. They've done nothing with that land, I might just say, since 2021. And now this further application really does put a lot of those operators on wood. They don't know what their future holds. I know council were this week considering spending around $13 million on a new sewage system, which would obviously cater for a new resort in the future, basically call it a Rolls-Royce model. But now council have had to postpone that decision because they're unclear as to whether or not anything would be built on this claim if it was successful in the federal court.
So, James, if successful, you do become the member, what do you want to see done with it?
Well, I want to see this native title claim opposed by the Queensland government. Now, Stephen Miles has not said that. He said that he has offered feedback to the court. I'd like to see that feedback. He said that last night on 9 News. Now, I want to see that feedback. I think locals have a right to see that feedback because he certainly hasn't sought feedback from Livingston Shire Council. He hasn't spoken to Capricorn Enterprise, which are the tourism body here and business body that represent the area. Great Keppel Island makes up 25% of our economy here in Livingston and Keppel, and with a brand new resort would make up to around 50% of the economy. That puts everything that the Capricorn Enterprise has sort of factored into their future plans at risk. And so too, so many of the mainland businesses that rely on tourism, we've really had a kick in the guts under Labor after the last 9 years. We've had so many promises made and yet nothing delivered when it comes to Great Keppel Island. The place, unfortunately, Peter, I hate saying this because I don't want to drive tourism away, but the place is looking like a dump. And
I saw the pictures on it last night. I think it's fair to say, James. And look, for people that used to travel to Great Keppel Island, it's a stunning part of the world. It's a beautiful place to be. We should be celebrating it, not closing it down and not having it subject to these federal court matters.
Correct. And the problem is we've been promised jetties, we've been promised fresh landing sites, toilet amenities, everything. 9 years Labor's been in power, we haven't seen one of them. I noted that the money that they promised, that $30 million, was missing as a line item from the recent budget. So they're not serious on committing the money they've promised to the island. And I don't think they're serious about challenging this most recent native title claim.
Do you find it strange, though, James? I find it a little bit of a merry-go-round. The cancellation of the lease means the Woppaburra people are entitled to submit a second native title claim. That includes the resort area. But then you have the Premier last night on the news saying, well, they're entitled to do so. But the Queensland government on a whole will challenge the claim. It's a merry-go-round of confusion.
Well, I think there's some cute little words being used there by Stephen Miles. I don't think he will oppose the application. He might say he'll challenge it, but on what grounds? Is he challenging it on the exclusivity of use, or is he challenging it holus bolus? Because what we've got over there is a runway. Look, as a pilot, I know how instrumental that island is to those pilots that sort of use the coastline to get up and down Queensland, but also too for medical emergencies. We need a proper place where a helicopter can land. I know one of the locals here, Peter Champion, was airlifted off the island only a bit over a week ago, and we can't afford to lose those things. I'm dubious as to where Labor stand on this claim itself. I'm more dubious at the fact that it was me that had to go and dig this up, and there's 71 other claims across Queensland that Labor have not presented a position to the Queensland public on where they stand with these native title claims. They are the respondent. You'll note on the federal court documents there, the first respondent is the Queensland government. Don't try and shirk this off as some federal government response or responsibility. This is a state government claim that the Woppaburra people have made against the Queensland government, no one else. So it's up to them to stand firm and oppose this as One Nation will. And I know so far I've got a petition. People have just got to Google Great Keppel Island petition against native title, and they can sign it themselves. I want to send a very clear message over the next couple of days, not only to our parliamentarians, but also to the courts as well.
Why is it, James Ashby, that we're seeing more and more land title claims? Is it because they sense blood in the water? They sense that an LNP government will soon be in power here in Queensland?
I think that's the case. Look, this is the voice by stealth. And as we know, Labor here in Queensland, supported by the LNP, supported and passed legislation which was the path to treaty. I've never, ever seen us at war with Indigenous people in this state or this country, so I don't understand why both Labor and the LNP went down this path. I also sense that the simple fact is Labor are very supportive of handing over land to Indigenous groups. But what are they doing with it? Is it any wonder, Peter, I've got to say, is it any wonder why we're struggling to get defence personnel to sign up? Because what are we defending in this country any longer? We've already handed over 50% of Australian land to native title. It looks as though over the next couple of years, after determinations in our federal court, that number will exceed 60%. I just don't understand where this ends. It was supposed to end when Kevin Rudd said sorry many years ago, and I just feel as though whatever we continue to do, we've changed the lyrics to our national anthem, we've done everything possible to assist Indigenous people with over $40 billion spent every single year on Indigenous people or those who identify as Indigenous in this country every single year, and it just doesn't seem to be enough. I feel the frustration from so many people, not just in Queensland, but across the country. I just don't know when it's going to end. Unless we put a sunset clause in the federal legislation that says, OK, as of this date, no more claims can be made, this will not end until 100% of Australia is claimed under native title.
Does James Ashby, from the representative from One Nation, will you ever support in the future? And I've got to say this, I like the traditional land practices such as fish trapping and backburning, and I like education. I'd love to see that tourists have the opportunity to be educated in, what Aboriginal people are about, what Aboriginal people did. I think Is there a happy medium? I mean, under One Nation, would you agree for more education?
Look, I love the idea of teaching traditional measures. Like, I don't have a problem with that. But, here's the problem that we've got in this country right now. If you're a traditional owner or part of that mob, you can go and hunt dugong, but you're not using traditional measures or methods to go and hunt them. They're using outboard motors, tinnies, and spears. Modern day stuff. If you want to go back to traditional hunting and gathering and so forth, do it in the traditional measure. And the other thing I really have a problem with, just a matter of weeks ago, they held the concept master plan on Great Keppel Island, flew all of the Woppaburra people in from other parts of the country. They don't live here, Peter. If you want to make a claim over something, surely you've got to be able to live
It's like
here.
kayak over on Fraser or Gari.
But the other problem was we paid them $500 to do a smoking ceremony and welcome to country. If it's your country, if you think it's your country and you feel as though you've got to welcome us, why are we going to pay for it?
It's an interesting debate, and look, it's one we're going to follow with great interest. James Ashby, appreciate your time this morning. No doubt we'll be chatting in the future.
Thanks, Peter.
There he is, the One Nation candidate for Great Keppel, making some interesting points